Hi Silem stars, you're welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you guys how to make this beautiful plunging neckline cowl dress. The back is also open as well and it is so beautiful. I'm also going to show you how to make the lovely palazzo trouser as well. So if you want to see how to make this beautiful two-piece set from start to finish, cutting, stitching, finishing, everything, if you want to see how we do this, definitely keep on watching.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there.
So we're starting off with the trouser. Now for this entire set, I'm using 4 yards of duchess satin fabric. You can use any light soft fabric. You can use chiffon, you can use silk, but for me I'm using satin. So the first thing I did was I marked the length of my trouser, which is 42 inches, but then I'm taking out 2 inches for my band. I'm going to be adding a 2-inch wide band, so I'm just marking that 2 inches, okay, so that when I take out the 2 inches band, I would replace it when I add the actual waistband later. Now my crotch depth is 11 inches, so that's what I marked. So I just took out 2 inches at the waist and then I marked my crotch depth, which is 11 inches. Okay, now this becomes my waistline. Okay, and this is my crotch line now, and that's my hem at the bottom. So now I'm just marking the fold of the fabric at that crotch line, and then I'm going to go in at the waistline from the fold by 1 inch, because you want that waist to be fitted, okay, and then open out into the hip, which is where the crotch is. So I'm just going to draw a diagonal line from that 1 inch to the crotch line, and then on the waist I divided the waist circumference by 4. I marked that on the waistline, okay, and then I'm adding 2 inches allowance. Now this 2 inches is actually for my darts, okay. Now on my crotch line I'm dividing my lap circumference, okay, that's my thigh. I'm dividing it by 2. I'm marking it there. Divide by 2, not by 4. Dividing my lap measurement by 2, marking it, and then I added 1 inch allowance to that. Now I'm just going to draw a straight line from the waist all the way down to the crotch. So just draw a straight line to connect both points, and then I'm going to get the midpoint of that straight line that I just marked, okay. So I'm just going to place my tape so I can get the midpoint. What I have is 9 inches. Half of that is 4.5. So I'm just marking that midpoint. And then I'm going to use my curved ruler to just draw a curve from that midpoint to the point I marked on the crotch line. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Now for the width of my palazzo, you want it to be as wide as you want. I want mine to be 12 inches, so I'm just marking 12 inches from the fold, and I'm just drawing that with a straight line. You can make your palazzo 15 inches wide, 13 inches wide, 10 inches wide, it depends on you. And then I'm using a curve now to connect the leg of the palazzo to that crotch point there. And then I'm going ahead now to just cut out cut along the lines that I marked. Basically, I'm also cutting along the fold as well, just to separate the pieces. Then I'm cutting along that line, and that's it for our front piece. Very easy, as you can see. So now I'm going to use this piece to cut my back piece. So I just folded my fabric again so I can cut my back piece, and then I've placed the front piece on top of the back piece. Now I'm just going ahead to cut the sides. The sides of the front and the back are exactly the same. The top as well is the same, okay, although you can go up at the top of your waist by about 1.5 inches if you have a big bum, but for me, I really don't have that. I'm not really that big when it comes to my hips, so I don't like to go up by 1.5 inches, okay. So now I'm just marking 1.5 inches along that crotch. That's for the back. And then I'm going to come down from the crotch point there by about 3 inches, and then from that 3-inch point I'm going to mark 2 inches allowance all the way down. So the main allowance you have for your trouser is actually at the back, not at the front. For the front you only have your dart and sewing allowance, but for your back, that's where you have your main allowance. So now I'm just extending that crotch line, okay, so it shows at the back. And then from that point there, I'm just marking 3 inches. So for the back crotch, it goes out more by 3 inches. Now that 3-inch point, I'm just coming down by half an inch, just half an inch at that 3-inch point. Now I'm going to connect that to the 1.5. I'm going to connect that to the 1.5 I have and to the 2 inches allowance that I have as well, okay. So just watch what I'm doing. If you don't understand, just go back and replay it. It's very, very easy to understand. And then I'm just cutting that out. Okay. So now if you want to add your zipper allowance to your trouser, you can go out, okay, by an extra 1 inch. After you've put your 1.5 inches allowance, go out by an extra 1 inch and then just curve it into the rest of the crotch. That will serve as your zipper allowance. But for me, I'm not adding any zipper allowance. I like to add my zipper to the allowance that I have when I sew that crotch curve. Okay, so I'm just cutting everything out. All right, so like I said, you can go up by about 1.5 inches at that waist of the back. If you have bigger hips, maybe your hips up to like 45 inches, you can go up. But for me, I don't like to go up because I like the fit my trouser has when I do it like this. So what I did at this point was I got the midpoint of the front piece, that's the waist of the front piece. I folded at that point, and then I'm just creating a notch. Make sure you're getting the midpoint of the front piece, the waist of the front piece, and not the midpoint of the waist of the back piece. Okay, so once you have that, all you have to do now is just join the back pieces along the crotch curve. I'm going to join that with 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then for the front as well, I'll join them with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is what it looks like. This is for the back. I've gone ahead to put in my darts. I've also joined it at the crotch curve as well. Now I'm just going to place my front piece right sides facing with my back piece like this. Okay, right sides facing, and then I'm going to join them by the sides. I'm joining them by the sides with 1 inch seam allowance. Okay, but I like to start off by joining from the waist to the hip with 1 inch seam allowance, and then from the hip down to the hem, I like to join it with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So whichever one you want to do is fine. But from the crotch down to the hem, I just joined it with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is what our piece looks like. So it's time for us to put in our waistband. Okay. So for my waistband, I'm just going to open up the back a bit. That's the allowance at the back a bit, so I can put in my waistband. So for the waistband, the length is my normal waist circumference plus 4 inches. Okay, so just add 4 inches to your normal waist circumference. Then for the width of my band, on when it's not folded, it is 5 inches, but then I folded it into 2 and then folded in 1/2 inch. I also made sure to fuse it with my interfacing first before I ironed it. So this is what the band looks like once we've prepared it. So make sure that you're joining this from the back. Okay, so now the part that I did not fold, I'm just going to place it right side with the wrong side of the trouser. So place the right side of the band with the wrong side of the trouser. Sew it round and then flip it, and then make sure that the fold is right at the top of the waist, and then just sew along the fold all the way around. Okay, this way you have a very neat band. Now moving on to the top, you want to first of all take your measurement. I'm taking this measurement on my mannequin, but you can take it on yourself if you're making this top for yourself or your client. So you just want to measure from one shoulder to the other shoulder, and then just check how deep you want the cowl neck to be. If you don't want it to be this deep, you can just adjust it and take note of the measurements. I'm also measuring the length I want my top to be. So those are the 2 measurements you need. So this is my fabric now, and the length of my fabric is 26 inches, which is the length that I want my top to be. I want my top to actually be 25 inches. I added 1 inch to that to make it 26 inches. Then for my cowl neck depth, I want the depth to be 32 inches. I added 1 inch to that to make it 33 inches. So that's what I have here. The length is the length of the top plus 1 inch, and the width is the cowl neck depth plus 1 inch. So I'm just folding my piece now so that I can, mark the rest of the measurements that I would need. So now from the top part of my piece there, I'm just going to mark my chest line. Okay, my normal chest line is 8 inches, but for this one I'm using 9 inches because you don't want it to be too tight around the armhole. So I'm just marking 9 inches, and then I'm going to fold my piece at that point and create my notch. Okay, so just notch your piece. That notch is very important because it's going to guide you. Now from that notch, I'm just measuring all the way down to the hem of the piece, and what I have is 18 inches. Also take note of the that measurement, okay, from the chest line down to the hem. Take note of the measurements you have. So as you can see now, once I just arrange my piece like this, you can see we already have that cow neck look already. Okay, it's actually a very simple top to make, because as you can see we already have that look that we are going for. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold the top part, which is where the neck is. I'm going to fold that top part and hem it down so that it's nice and neat. So just hem it down very, very neatly, and also sew the bottom part, that's the hem as well. Now this piece now is for my back, okay, and the length of this piece is that measurement that I took from the chest line to the hem of the front, okay, but I added 2 inches to it because of my elastic casing and because of the hemming I would do. So let me show you again. This is the front piece. So from the chest line to the hem was 18 inches. So that is the measurement I use now to cut the length of my back. So 18 inches, but I added extra 2 inches because I'm going to hem the bottom part, and because I'm going to add my elastic casing as well at the top. That's why I added extra 2 inches, okay? So just add extra 2 inches. Then for the width of this, I divided my hip circumference by 2, which gave me 19 inches, and then I added 6 inches to that. Okay, so whatever your hip measurement is, if it's 40 inches, divide by 2, that will give you 20, and then you add 6 inches to that. So that means you're going to have 26 for the width. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my piece so that I can create my elastic channel. Make sure that your elastic channel is wide enough to accommodate the elastic you're using. I'm using a 1/2 inch wide elastic, okay? So I'm just going to do it that way. I'm also going to hem the bottom part of my piece. So as you can see, I've hemmed it and I've created my elastic casing. Now for my elastic, now the length of my elastic is the armhole to armhole measurements. So measure from one armhole to the other armhole at the back, okay? Make sure you're measuring this at the back. So measure from one armhole to the other armhole. For me, I got 15 inches, and then because this is an elastic, I subtracted 2 inches from that, and that gave me 13 inches. So that is the length of my elastic, okay? And the width of my elastic is 1/2 inch. So now I'm just using my safety pin to insert my elastic into the elastic casing or the elastic channel. Okay, so just do this bit by bit. Okay, be careful so that the elastic doesn't fall into the casing. So make sure you pin the ends of the elastic on both sides so that it does not fall into the casing. Okay, otherwise you'll have to start afresh. So once you've pinned it, you want to go ahead and tack at that point that you pinned. So just tack the ends so the elastic stays put. Okay, now back to our front piece. This is our front piece. I've hemmed the top part. I've also hemmed the bottom part as well. So now this notch part here, like I said, is very important because it's going to guide you. Now I've created my bias using the fabric. So the width of my fabric before I created the bias was 2 inches. The width of this fabric was 2 inches, and the length is 49 inches. Now I folded this fabric into 2 lengthwise, and then I folded 1/2 inch inwards as well on both sides. So after folding and creating the bias, the width I have now is 1/2 inch. So that's what you want to do, okay? And I created 2 of these pieces because I'll use one for each side, okay? So now starting from where I have that notch, which is my chest line, I'm just going to open up the bias there and then just insert my piece into the bias. I don't know if that makes sense. Insert the piece into the bias like this, and then you want to sew it. Okay, so do the same thing for the other side. I pinned it so that it stays in place, okay, and it doesn't pull out by the time I get to my sewing machine. I just opened the bias and I push the fabric into the bias, okay, and then I'm going to sew right from that where that chest line notch is. I'll sew along the bias all the way to the end, okay? So just make sure you sew right at the edge there. I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. And then once you're done, this is what you're going to have. Can you see? It's very, very neat. If you do it well, you're going to have a very, very neat result. Now the final thing we're going to do is we're going to join the front piece to the back piece, okay, along the sides. So I'm just going to place my back piece now right sides facing with the front piece, starting from where I have that chest line notch. Okay, I'm going to sew the back piece to the front piece with half-inch seam allowance. I'll do the same thing with the other side, join them with half-inch seam allowance, and this is what it looks like. Okay, it's so beautiful. I'm also going to show you what it looks like on my body as well when I'm putting it on. And as you can see, the neckline is so deep, and because it is open, if you're not comfortable showing your boobs, you might have to wear like a tube inside so that it doesn't show your boobs, or you can tack it right at that chest line there, which is what I did. And this is how it looks like on me. I really love how this turned out. I'm so in love with this set, guys. I'm so wearing it the next time I'm going out. As you can see, I went ahead to tack it right at the chest there so that I am comfortable. Okay, but this is the final look, guys. I really love how this turned out. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and if you try this, please don't forget to send me a picture. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.